The world of the 21st century is overflowing with wealth. But there are scenes that contradict this abundance. Among the 7 billion people on Earth, 1 out of 5 people survive on less than $1 a day. 1 out of every 4 people do not have access to drinkable water. 1 out of every 8 people suffer from malnutrition. Absolute poverty is like an inescapably long tunnel. Korea was a country in abject poverty. With its land ravaged by war, it did not have even the most meager resources. However, 60 years later, Korea has become a global power with the world's 14th largest economy.
Korea has gone through an amazingly rapid and successful technological transformation. And this is fabulous.
How did Korea, once the poorest country in the world, manage to escape the clutches of poverty and achieve such astounding success? In 1945, Korea gained independence from 35 years of Japan's occupational rule. But the Korean War broke out on June 25, 1950, even before they could enjoy their newfound freedom. Taking a toll of some 5 million casualties, the Korean War left the newly formed republic in a state of devastation. However, during the busy efforts of restoration, education became the nation's highest priority. Although they were struggling from day to day, Korean parents did not give up on the education of their children. Despite the war's devastation, the government invested in education, making primary and middle school attendance compulsory. This dedication to and investment in education produced a highly trained workforce that would later on become the impetus for Korea's economic turnaround. Unable to recover from the ruins of war on its own, Korea was forced to rely on foreign aid. But when the foreign aid subsided, after completion of the major restoration work, this caused Korea's economic growth to stall. This was a dire situation for a nation whose budget relied more than 90% on foreign aid. It was at this time that the military regime came to power. Having succeeded in a military intervention, its leadership made economic development their top priority, if only to quell widespread public turmoil. In order to spur economic growth, the military regime founded the Economic Planning Board, giving it unprecedented powers for planning, allocating the budget, and for attracting foreign capital. The Economic Planning Board developed a 5-year plan. This was to be the new blueprint for economic development. In 1962, the first 5-year plan was put into action. The problem was the acquisition of funds. Unfortunately, the United States reacted with indifference. Berger, the United States ambassador to Korea at the time, also made a negative report on this plan to Washington, D.C. But Korea did not give up. After endless efforts, they were able to receive an inflow of capital from West Germany. The miners and nurses that were dispatched to West Germany sent their earnings home, and the government was able to obtain loans by pledging these funds as collateral.
저희들 분푼이 보내는 것을 종합적으로 해가지고 참 그걸 갖다가 경제 발전 어느 곳에 쓰고도록 하는 걸. 그때 정책 입안 정책을 하시던 분들이 참 뭔가 잘했다고 생각합니다.
This was helpful, but far from enough. Due to an inability to attract sufficient funds, the Korean economy took a nosedive. Fortunately, the light industry sectors like textiles, wigs, and needlework developed rapidly and created momentum for the Korean economy's growth. While guiding the economy with policies such as rationalization of the exchange rate and interest rates in 1964 and 1965, the government also responded to the market's demands and fostered free enterprise. However, since the light industries relied on low-cost wages, their competitiveness weakened when wages increased. The government began to invest in new industries, such as steel, coal, chemicals, machinery, and shipbuilding to create a powerful engine for economic growth. Steel was the first heavy industry to be developed. Despite skepticism and concern about the feasibility of such a venture, the government launched a massive effort to build an integrated steel mill in 1970. The United States and other nations looked upon this project with doubt, as the steel industry requires massive investment and cutting-edge technology. A more advanced nation than Korea at that time had attempted this task, but failed. In spite of such skepticism, the Pohang Steel Mill began to produce steel in 1973.
산업화를 해야 되니까 국가의 경제 구조를 산업화의 구조로 가져가려고 했으니까 제조업이 중심이 돼서 계획이 만들어졌지. 그래서 산업의 쌀이라고 하지 않나? 철이. 그리고 초량공업이 물론 들어갔고.
Although it entered the steel industry about 60 years later than advanced nations, Korea would soon become the world's sixth largest producer of steel. The success of this primary industry paved the way for the advancement of other steel-related industries, such as shipbuilding, automobiles, fine machinery, construction, and electronics. The Saemaul Undong is considered as one of the crucial forces in promoting the growth of the Korean industry. When the Saemaul Undong began in the 1970s, the Korean government was virtually bankrupt. But the support they managed to provide was used effectively by Koreans in improving their living standards. 33,267 villages in Korea received free cement. For the next 2 years, only villages that showed promise were given additional cement and steel. The government decided to support the communities that had the will to stand on their own. The people also cast off their self-doubt and gained confidence that anything was possible, which nurtured hope for a bright future. Once a movement to increase the revenue of farms, the Saemaul Undong made its way into all sectors of society, increasing social awareness in the cities, factories, and the workplaces. This showed that poverty could not be overcome through foreign aid alone, and that the true path to success lies in deeply rooted solutions that can change the core of society. This grassroots effort, coupled with the global economic boom, helped to fuel an amazing economic growth in Korea. But a crisis emerged from an unexpected source. In October 1973, the Yom Kippur War broke out. With the price of raw materials skyrocketing, the domestic factories ground to a halt while inflation soared. This was a critical blow to Korea, since it was a country without a drop of oil, which had just begun to industrialize. But this crisis proved to be an opportunity. The Korean government used the construction boom in the Middle East, which resulted from the skyrocketing oil prices, dispatching workers to the region and constructing $10 billion worth of buildings a year. As such, Korea used the oil crisis to stimulate economic growth. Around this time, another oil shock occurred. After learning valuable lessons from the first crisis, Korea overcame the second oil shock without much difficulty. During the two oil shocks, most other countries decreased their investment, but not Korea. For the first oil shock, Korea invested heavily in its steel, oil, chemicals, machinery, and shipbuilding industries, while in response to the second oil shock, Korea boldly restructured its economy. Their strategy was right on target. The phenomena of the three lows, low US dollar, low oil prices, and low interest rates, helped the Korean economy to flourish in the 1980s. Korea's export-based economy became even more competitive, and the nation's per capita GNP rose sharply. These achievements came after only 33 years of Korea's economic development efforts. Thanks to this success, Korea became a member of the WTO in 1995 and a member of the OECD in 1996. But these successes had blinded the nation to the lurking dangers of the global economy. Quite simply, it could be said that Korea had popped the champagne cork too soon. The Asian financial crisis, which started in Thailand, spread through East Asia like wildfire. Korea was by no means exempt from this crisis. 6 out of 10 major corporations were in danger of bankruptcy. Even the conglomerates of Korea were on the verge of collapse. On November 21, 1997, Korea applied for relief assistance from the IMF.
To the globalized environment and return the Korean
Corporate downsizing became the order of the day, while the people of Korea, who once dreamed of joining the world's advanced countries, were burdened to share the pain. Then again, the financial crisis presented an opportunity for economic reforms. Insolvent financial institutions were shut down or merged, while corporate businesses underwent extensive restructuring. Along with this restructuring, management systems were also changed to include principles based on competition and performance.
First of all, Korea recognized that it had to restructure some of its policies and some of its industries. And it did that aggressively and forcefully. It provided leadership in that. It did not wait for the rest of the world to make it happen.
As a result, Korea's foreign exchange reserves, which had dwindled to $3.9 billion during the financial crisis, surged to $99 billion in September 2001, making Korea the fifth country with the most foreign exchange reserves in the world. Repayment to the IMF, which began in 1998, was completed in August 2001, with a final installment of $350 million. It was a truly moving achievement in which Korea managed to pay off the loan 3 years ahead of the deadline. When war in the Middle East broke out, most corporations and their employees withdrew from the region in panic. But Korean corporations faced the potential risks and remained in the region, maintaining their marketing networks. Due to the financial crisis in 1997, the value of currency plummeted and the price of gold skyrocketed. But the people of Korea impressed the world by voluntarily contributing to a national gold campaign. A similar response was seen when the swine flu broke out in Mexico. While the world shook in fear of the disease, the employees of Korean businesses in Mexico continued their work with face masks, which enabled them to boost their regional presence. The automobile industry is a powerful engine for economic growth in Korea. The Korean automobile industry experienced countless ups and downs, taking bitter lessons from its various difficulties. But a Korean compact auto, made with the sweat of a dedicated workforce, received favorable reviews in the United States in the 1980s, which served to open a new era in the Korean automotive industry that would enjoy explosive growth in the coming years. In addition, Korea built production lines in factories in America and researched and developed designs in technology that the Americans wanted, which resulted in an increase in sales and decrease in export expenses. The reason Korea was able to succeed despite being a latecomer in the global market was because of the localization strategy based on thorough market analysis. The semiconductor industry was another risky venture. But thanks to the aggressive support of the Korean government, Korea emerged as the world's third-ranked semiconductor producer and succeeded in developing the state-of-the-art 64K DRAM, which led to its global leadership in the industry. In only 10 years, Korea managed to secure a dominant share of the global market and is currently the world leader of the semiconductor industry. Korea also attempted a revolution in the information technology industry. The cutting-edge enterprises that were founded during the IT boom provided a new stimulus to the economy, enabling Korea to become an IT powerhouse in a matter of years.
Korea was one of the early countries to use the internet and has a strong history of innovation in technology. The foresightedness of the government gave it the #1 position in broadband wired.
But in the 21st century, the rapidly changing global market environment and system of endless competition threatened Korea's economic growth. For continuous growth, a powerful change was necessary. An innovation system was implemented throughout the whole economy. Based on this innovation economy, Korea broke away from the existing heavy industry and manufacturing industry-centered structure and changed the export structure to the technology-intensive industry. The government's support policy, like providing subsidy, tax cuts, and more, also helped. The newfound confidence stemming from its prosperous economy has served as a stepping stone for a cultural revolution as well. Korea began to produce Korean-style music, TV dramas, and films imbued with Korean sensibilities. This started the international trend known as the Korean Wave. Korea's pop culture contents like K-pop and K-dramas spread throughout the world in a short time, like Psy's Gangnam Style that took the world by storm in 2012. Korean cultural contents are adding culture and style to Korea's image, which used to be more focused on the effects of economic development. But this spectacular success story, characterized by growth-oriented economic policies, has also spawned problem areas such as a growing disparity between the rich and poor, conflict between cities and rural areas, and pollution. Externally, Korea must solve the urgent issues of the latecomer country's advancement and the widening gap between Korea and the developed countries. For the future, new added value, jobs, and growth engines must be created through creative economy that's based on creative ideas. The government is actively leading the way to change economic constitution by investing money, making Korean-style funds, getting rid of competition-restrictive regulations in the promising service industry, and more for economic vitalization. As specific outlines of creative economy began to be realized, activities to create new added value based on these outlines increased. As a result, new products appeared due to the vitalization of venture companies and startup businesses, and the economic structure changed into centering on the promising service industry like medical service, tourism, and software. Acquiring an advantageous position in the huge Chinese market before the US or Europe through succeeding in concluding Korea-China FTA will serve as the new energizer of Korea's economic development and the growth engine for Korea's future. Therefore, Korea will continue to make efforts. As a country that was once one of the poorest nations in the world, Korea has built an economic success story from the ruins of war. In 2009, Korea joined the OECD's Development Assistance Committee. Korea has become the world's only nation among the various countries that gained independence after World War II to evolve from an aid recipient to an aid donor. The strategy and know-how of Korea's economic development from absolute poverty is now being benchmarked by many countries from all over the world. Joining the G20, Korea has become a rule setter in the international world, taking on new challenges for the world's future as a responsible member of the international community.